So recently, I had the opportunity to compete in Utah's Biggest Liar in Spanish Fork, Utah. That is a tall tale competition. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with what a tall tale is a story that starts out very believable. And as the story progresses, it gradually gets more and more exaggerated. And by the time you reach the end of the story, it is so far flung that everything is just out of control. And the past 2 or 3 times I competed, I didn't even place. And so after the last year's competition, a week or so after the competition, I was thinking to myself, man, I got to do better. You know, I got to do something big. And so I was actually in the shower when this idea came to me. I got out, I dried myself off, I got dressed, and then I went and wrote the idea down. And I immediately went and shared the idea with my wife. And she says to me, I think you have a keeper there. So I waited a year to tell the story that I am about to show to you right now. Now, as I approached one of the contestants at the competition and asked if he would be willing to film my performance, when it came time to actually film, the slider on my phone case actually got in front of the camera, and he didn't realize it until it was too late, I guess, that the whole video was dark. And at a certain point, he realized where that the camera was being covered and opened it. And that's when you can see the rest of the competition. And so I'm about to share with you the beginning of that story, and then I'm going to edit it in with the rest of my performance. So this is an original tall tale by me that is called The Dispenser. When I was 16 years old, I worked at Grandma D's Diner in Sparta, Missouri. This was not only a landmark place to visit, it was a landmark place to work for. Scores of people came to get a taste of Grandma D Diner's chicken fried steak. And as a waiter at this restaurant, I was a first-hand witness to the many lives and the many stomachs that had been touched by Grandma D Diner's chicken fried steak. Well, one day in the middle of my shift, I go to the restroom to, use the restroom. I go up to the sink, I wash my hands, I go over to the paper towel dispenser, and ka-chunk, ka-chunk, shh. I dry my hands, I throw the paper towel in the trash, and just as I'm getting ready to walk out, I notice that a little boy went up to wash his hands after using the restroom, and then he went over to the paper towel dispenser, and he couldn't reach. Well, I couldn't leave it like that. So I walk over to the paper towel dispenser and ka-choo, ka-choo, shh. I give the paper towel to the little boy. He dries his hands off, throws it in the trash, and then walks out with this smile on his face. Now, just as I was getting ready to leave, a father came in with his little boy, and this little boy was crying inconsolably. I mean, there was no comforting him. All through washing his hands, he refused to be comforted. Well, I couldn't leave it like that. So I walk over to the paper towel dispenser and ka-choo, ka-choo, shh. Then I walk up to the dad and I say, excuse me, sir, what is your son's favorite animal?
And he says, well, he really likes dinosaurs. I know it's not an animal, but he really likes dinosaurs. So I take my paper towel and I fold an origami Tyrannosaurus Rex. And I hand it to the little boy. He stops crying. The dad and the little boy turn, walk out of the restroom with this big smile on their face. That was a good moment. Now, just as I was getting ready to leave the restroom, all of a sudden, this herd of little boys and girls come running through the door of the restroom in a straight line. They're like, me, I want one too, I want an animal, I want. It was this little boy's cousins. They were there at Grandma D Diner's for a birthday party, and now they all wanted origami animals. So I walk on over to the paper towel dispenser and ka-choo, ka-choo, shh, ka-choo, ka-choo, shh, ka-choo, ka-choo, shh. Origami giraffe, origami tiger, origami crocodile, until I had gone through every single one of the kids in that line. They all turned and went out of the restroom with these huge smiles on their faces. It was a good moment. Now, just as I was finally getting ready to leave the restroom, all of a sudden I hear screams coming from the diner. I go over to the door, creak it open a little bit. And there were these guys that were holding the customers at gunpoint. Turns out they were an elite espionage group that had come to this particular diner, and they didn't like the price that they were given for the meal. I couldn't leave it like that. So I walk on over to the paper towel dispenser. Ka-choo, ka-choo, shh. Origami ninja stars. Right in my pocket. And then, ka-choo, 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 shh. Ammo just in case I run out. I put it in my pocket. I go over to the bathroom vent and I pop it open. I climb on in through and I begin to crawl and make my way through the whole restaurant. Just as I was above the guys with guns, because I could hear them right underneath me, I bust through the ceiling in a somersault fashion, land, pull the stars out of my pocket, and oh! Took them all out in that moment. Then out of nowhere, there was this bullet that grazed right by, right into a photo. I missed one. So I reach into my pocket, I pull out the extra ammo, and I fold an origami boomerang. Oh! Got him. They were all taken out now. So I went over to one of them and I began to interrogate him. I said, "What is your business with Grandma D's diner?" And he said that he had been hired to hijack the recipe of Grandma D Diner's chicken fried steak. And they were given orders that if they did not successfully return with the recipe by a certain time, there was one more member of the group that was going to knock over the Sparta, Missouri water tower, unleashing a flood that would not only sweep through the whole town, but particularly Grandma D's diner. So I looked at him, I said, "How much time do we have?" And he said, "You have about 5 minutes. So I go back to the restroom. On over to the paper towel dispenser. Reach into my pocket, I pull out some tape. I take the paper, and I run around Grandma D's diner, not once, not twice, but 7 times, until I had successfully created a protective barrier around the diner. And I knew that if I was going to carry out the rest of the task, I was going to need help. Ladies and gentlemen, it was not a coincidence that night, eating at Grandma D's diner was the entire Spartan football team. It was a home game, and they won. And I also knew that the coach did not cut any team players from the team that year. And so the number of players totaled up to 300 Spartans. So I brought them out to the front yard and I lined them up in Spartan army style. And I go back into the restroom and I rip the paper towel dispenser off the wall. And I go to each of the Spartan football players and ka-choo, ka-choo, right hand, ka-choo, ka-choo, left hand, ka-choo, ka-choo, right hand, ka-choo, ka-choo, left hand. And I demonstrate in front of everybody how to fold an origami Spartan sword and the classic origami Spartan shield. Then we look up, and in the distance, the big water tower can be seen falling down. And upon the explosion, it unleashed 3 tidal waves that were now beginning to make their way. So I go onto the army, the 300 Spartans, and I say, "Spartans, hold your position!" Woo! And they form an entire wall of Spartan shields. In comes the first wave, and it crashes right against their origami shields. It pushes them back just a little bit, but they manage to hold the line and successfully absorbed all of the water in that first wave. But there was no time to waste. Off in the distance, the second wave was coming. So, ka-choo, ka-choo, right hand, ka-choo, ka-choo, left hand, ka-choo, ka-choo, right hand, ka-choo, ka-choo, left hand. Spartan sword, Spartan shield. They lined up for the next one. The next one was even bigger than the first. Then the wave comes crashing on. They can barely hang on. They're being pushed back. But then they manage to create a little space for the football captain to come on through with his sword. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, whoosh, he starts slicing at the wave with his paper sword. It's absorbing. Whoosh, whoosh. It looks like victory is imminent. But then the tail of the wave comes and sweeps the entire football team. And there they were, all on the floor, waterlogged. I was the only one left. And I look in the distance, and there comes the third wave. It is so big that it blocks out the sunlight. I'm all that's left. And I was about to make my stand. So I take my paper towel dispenser and the 2 remaining rolls of paper towels. I look my enemy face to face, or rather tear duct to aqueduct. The wave is coming. Right as it comes up to me, I say, "This is Sparta!" I kick the wave, and it ripples down the middle, parting down the center like Moses in the Red Sea. And I take my paper towel dispenser, and in machine gun-like fashion, I begin to fire. Ran out of paper, pop it open. New roll goes out in slow motion. The new roll comes, or the old roll goes out in slow motion. The new roll comes in. It was the biggest cleanup spill on aisle 9 the world had ever seen. Any water that made it past me was successfully absorbed by the paper towel barrier around the restaurant. Needless to say, ladies and gentlemen, I won Employee of the Year that year. And needless to say, they never upgraded to an electronic hand dryer. They kept that dispenser for the rest of the days of that restaurant. And I was given the nickname from that day forward, the Dispenser. Because I was the dispenser of justice. Thank you.